Good morning to you all. I'm Giampiero Massolo, the president of ISPI, and I wanted to welcome you all to this panel discussion that is being held on the last day, the conclusive day of the 6th edition of the Med Dialogues. The Med Dialogues have always sought to set up a positive agenda for the broader Mediterranean, and seen from this side of the sea, the role that the EU may have in the creation of a positive agenda is what we're looking into. This is the subject matter of this round table discussion, and with a special reference to security in the broader Mediterranean. In fact, we have an exceptional panel here. Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Italian Republic, Luigi Di Maio, the Minister for Foreign Affairs of the French Republic, Yves, and the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Spain, Arancha Gonzalez, Laya, the Minister of the Niels, Annen, Under Secretary of State for Security, and the Americas, Asia, and the Eastern Policy, Marcin Psidak. We're going to be having 2 sessions of questions, and I will be assisted as moderator. This is a joint venture between ISPI and IFRI. I have Thomas Gomar, the director of IFRI, whom I greet, and therefore we will have 2 rounds of questions. A first round that will be moderated or coordinated by Thomas, and the second will be coordinated by me. I pass the floor now to Thomas Gomar.
Thank you very much, Giampiero. I'm very happy to participate in this 6th edition of Med Dialogues, always very well organized by ISPI. So I will be facilitating this first round table, and I will be asking the Italian Minister Luigi Di Maio. In an interview last month with Le Monde, you insisted on the need of taking into account the security issues, the migration issues, and the energy issues in the Mediterranean, and to do so according to a European prospect. So the question I'd like to ask you a few weeks after this interview is, how do you assess the situation in the Mediterranean, and what are for you the priority actions within a European framework? So over to you, Mr. Minister Di Maio.
Thank you. Thank you for this question. Thank you to Genevieve, Yves, Drian for participating in this panel, and I thank the Ambassador Massolo and all those who are with us, and also all the other ministers who are linked up with us, and I thank them all for their participation. When I was asked to present some introductory remarks to this panel, I felt it was necessary to begin by saying that in 2019, 5 countries were represented on this virtual stage, and they were more than 67% of the GDP of Europe and 66% of its population. Therefore, qualified majority, which is needed for our decisions. So for the European Union, cooperating in the Mediterranean is extremely important and in the interest of all, not only of the riverine countries. And I'm firmly convinced about this. I'm convinced that it is necessary to maintain Euro-Mediterranean cooperation, and at the same time, at the top of our agenda, this issue is to be kept at the top of our agenda. And I will tell you why we need to cooperate and avoid individual actions which would not be profitable. With regard to security in Europe, in the relationship between the 2 sides of the Mediterranean, it is important to be clear as to who are our interlocutors. And Therefore, we need to fight against or curb terrorism, organized crime, and the trafficking in human beings. In a geopolitical perspective, we need to cooperate, to have the various parties cooperate in order to protect the trade paths and all trade activities. And we need to avoid external intermingling in this area, interference by external powers. So we need to be present in this scenario. Many countries, or the MENA region, represents a florid market for trade and for various businesses. Complementarity between the north and south of the Mediterranean serves the purpose of shorter and controllable trade paths. And the creation and diffusion of well-being in this region is indispensable in order to attenuate the negative effects of economic problems and the work of criminal groups. And energy is also important. We need to share the huge resources, the hydrocarbon resources in this area, and protect the main sea paths for gas and oil that is transported through the Mediterranean. So we have discussed about a number of issues here at the Med Dialogues. We need to promote governance in the area, and the overall concern of the area requires cooperative activities through inclusive engagement, which are part of our of our foreign policy. We also need mechanisms that enable us to share the common resources. Our countries can do a huge amount of things together. We can promote the neighborhood policy of the European Union through joint participation in the Mediterranean assets and positive incentives to North-South cooperation according to a more-for-more approach. We need to continue to cooperate with the United Nations within a number of processes that bear good fruits if they are defended and supported, from Libya to Yemen and Syria. Our overall weight in NATO enables us to exercise our influence so as to strengthen its southern side. We can contribute to extending the efficacy of cooperation partnerships that OECD has set up with the Mediterranean countries to share best practices and facilitate capacity building. We can create new fora for technical cooperation, beginning with the energy sector, because this would be a win-win situation. We need to feel responsibility for the well-being of all the peoples of the wider Mediterranean area.
Thank you very much, Minister. So I'd like to address Jean-Yves Le Drian. I'm very happy to find him again, thanks to our friends from ISPI, the Italian Institute for International Political Studies. In Ajaccio, the Med7 countries were brought about by Emmanuel Macron, and you mobilized to put in practice the declaration that had been issued at the end of this meeting with 4 major points in this declaration. With assertive positions about the Lebanon, Turkey, Syria, and on Libya, of course. The question I'd like to ask you, Minister, is after 3 months, what is your assessment of the general situation and, more generally speaking, of the 4 items I've just mentioned? Over to you, Minister. To answer Mr. Gomar, I'd like to share with you three main convictions that we may find in the declaration of Med 7 of last September. First, Europe must wait more in the Mediterranean. If this is not the case, others will do so, and to the detriment of our interests. Turkey, Russia might exploit confused situations that divide us. We see this in the Eastern Mediterranean and Libya, and we also see that the Mediterranean, unfortunately, has become the groundwork for this destabilization systems. It's the area of all conflicts, of all potentials, and this is a space where there are many challenges, the economic, political, and Luigi has mentioned this, and this is the reason why the Mediterranean is in the interest of all European and not only of bordering countries like France and Italy. My second conviction being that we have yet to develop the tools for our power in the Mediterranean. There's the Barcelona process, and we've just celebrated the 25th anniversary of Union for the Mediterranean. We have European formats like neighborhood policy, the Med 7, and we have bilateral exchanges like the one of today. This is the reason why I'm in Rome. But despite this, as Europeans, we have not yet found the capability of forging or making together our Mediterranean basin area. My second conviction or hope is that a opportunity window would be opened. The European sovereignty is not juxtaposed with the Mediterranean partnership, but this is an opportunity, and we can suppose that the new American administration will cherish this partnership and would like Europe to play a greater role in order for Europe to stabilize its regional environment. What does that mean in concrete terms? Let me just identify 5 ideas. First, our sensitivities in the Mediterranean are different, but this is a wealth, and this is the first need to make our partnership have a weight, but also for our nationals to have a weight. My second food for thought is to take up the challenge of migrations. And the Commission has recently put forward proposals for greater solidarity. We need to negotiate. We need to make this clearer. But this is a very important starting point, and we have to work on this. And the third food for thought is to strengthen our capability for rule of law to be better respected and for greater security. And this is what we have been doing within the framework of the Iranian mission, and it's also the challenge to take up whether there's infringement upon rule of law. Fourth idea is to strengthen our diplomatic management of a crisis, and the final solution should be dialogue. Regardless of the subject of the matter at stake. And my fifth idea is that we have mobilized the means of the European Union to develop a southern deal at the service of economic development of young people. Luigi has mentioned energy sources and for the benefit of ecology within this framework of the Mediterranean. This was mentioned in the Med 7 meeting of Ajaccio, though you've only mentioned the reasons for conflicts, but all these objects with Italy have very fruitful and positive relations.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I now would like to turn to Madam Minister from Spain. You stated Last week was the Mediterranean Day, the Day for the Mediterranean, to celebrate the Barcelona process. The Barcelona process, and we're celebrating the 25th anniversary, and this was mentioned also in your statement. 25 years later, what can we say? What can you say about the Barcelona process, and how do you see the current situation in the Mediterranean? Madam Minister, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas, for
turn to English.
Asking me the question.
This region is at the heart of 5 major structural transformations, and the 5 are working at the same time, and the 5 are impacting very heavily on Mediterranean countries. The first is a climate transition. Let's not forget that the Mediterranean is the second most affected region in the world on climate change. A demographic transition, median age in the MENA region, 26 years. This is an incredible, it has an incredible power. It's a huge youth bulge, but needs to be channeled into jobs, employment, decent work. If that doesn't happen, it risks also destabilizing the countries. The third, Luigi mentioned it, an energy transition. As we move to a lower carbon economy, it is impacting many of the fossil fuel energy producers in the region. The fourth is a democratic transition. Let's not forget that the Arab Spring also started in this part of the world. And finally, there is a big geopolitical competition happening in this region. So this means that for Europe, there needs to be a very close attention, very close investment into the vicinity of the EU, which is the southern neighborhood. This is why what we think we need to do together with our neighbors in a co-responsible manner, give a new impetus to this job that we started 25 years ago with the Barcelona process. And from where I sit, this requires essentially 3 ingredients. We need a strategic, comprehensive agenda of engagement. This is what we tried to start crafting together when we convened on the 26th and 27th of November. All actors on the EU side and on the Mediterranean side to discuss together how to craft this agenda. It has to be comprehensive. It's not only economic, it also has to be political, it has to be energy, it has to be climate, it has to be migrations, it has to be investments, it has to be about democracy and human rights. So we need a more strategic and a more comprehensive agenda. The second thing we need, and this is also something on which Europeans have been a little bit guilty, is more political energy into this partnership. This is a region that requires greater political investment from governments, from political leaders on both sides in order to give it the attention that it deserves. Third and final, and this is more for the EU family, it requires a little bit more unity on the European Union side in order for us to be more capable of pulling our weight towards addressing a number of entrenched conflicts that this region has, from the Israel-Palestinian conflict to Libya, to Syria, to the Western Sahara, and the list goes on. We need, not to mention turbulences on the Eastern Mediterranean side. A little bit more unity on our side, in my view, would be helpful, together with this political energy in pushing, in advancing, in ensuring a little bit more peace, stability, and economic progress for the region.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. And now I'd like to address Niels Annen, Minister in the last Munich conference on security last September, you stressed the importance that Germany and you should give to the link between security and the climate. And the previous speakers have stressed this too. How do you see this link in the Mediterranean today and a way of improving this link? Over to you, Minister.
Grazie mille. Thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure to be here. And greetings from Minister Maas, who's unfortunately not able to join you. Thanks for the question. I really could subscribe to what my colleagues just said. And I want to pick up from what the Spanish minister just said, that we need more unity in Europe and that we need more political energy and investment. And I believe that's what we are also trying to do right now as the rotating presidency. And so, Mr. Chair, with your permission, because it's not always obvious when you look at the map of Europe, but we believe that we are also somehow a Mediterranean country, at least if we think in a European spirit. And I believe the times where Europe could afford as a whole not to care about its neighborhood in general, they are over. And it's seen in the Mediterranean, the recent developments, also the political crisis, the stress that we are under requires a united European approach. And I'm not among the camp who believes that every conflict in the region could be dated back only to climate change. But we need to understand that it has a real impact also on our own neighborhood. And that is why Germany, in our capacity as a member, a non-permanent member of the Security Council, with the support of our European friends, I just saw Minister Drian put the issue, the connects between climate change and security center stage at the Council. We did not succeed in passing a resolution, but I believe we succeeded in making it a topic. And I hope that while we are leaving the Council end of this month, that others will pick up the issue. But Mr. Chair, if you would allow me just very briefly to make a reference also to Germany's increased engagement in the Mediterranean and in the spirit that Minister Gonzalez mentioned, together with our European partners and friends. And of course, I'm looking at the situation in Libya. I know that without the dedication and the political capital invested in the Berlin process, especially by the two ministers present here, Minister Di Maio and Minister Drian, we would not have been able to succeed and making the progress slowly and fragile, but progress that we are seeing here. And I also believe that we can subscribe to what Minister Drian mentioned, that if we are not present as a political capacity in the region, others will not just stand idly by. And we can see that not only in Syria, we see that in Libya as well. So I believe making sure that the Libyan people can take their own destiny in their own hands also requires to make sure that this is not going to become a battlefield of outside powers. And so also Germany has increased also its visibility. The Operation Irini was mentioned. And I don't want to go into details for question of my limited time here, Mr. Chair, but I believe you all also observed that both Chancellor Merkel and Foreign Minister Maas has been very much engaged to ease the tensions, the recent tension in the Eastern Mediterranean. And we share a lot of the concerns mentioned and voiced here, especially when it comes to the increasingly assertive role in regional policies of Turkey. At the same time, we believe that the door for talks and negotiations to a peaceful settlement needs to remain open. And so we are looking forward for the next European decisions to coming up. And again, Mr. Chair, it is a great pleasure and honor for me to share the stage here with my colleagues. And I believe the forum has really made an important contribution to that important debate over the last 6 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now I would like to turn to Marcin Prizdash. From your standpoint in Warsaw, what are the main priorities that you see today in the Mediterranean, and what link can you make with the previous contributions that we have just heard? How do you relate to those?
Merci beaucoup, Thomas. Thank you very much for inviting us and for this timely and important discussion. Let me join my German colleague by saying that we are not directly in the Mediterranean region, but by spirit we are there with you, and we believe that only through the concerted efforts and through the unity of the EU we can achieve our common goals. So the question was about the assessment of the Mediterranean region and our priorities. Although in these difficult times it is not an easy question, what are the priorities? Let's first maybe face the reality, how it is. I would say that the sanitary situation in the southern neighborhood seems to be under relative control of the region, with underlying challenges is exceptionally vulnerable to security and economic repercussions of COVID-19, as mentioned also during this discussion. International assistance will be of critical importance. International means also the EU. So we as Poland are carefully listening to your expertise, and you are just taking the lead. We'll try to understand the region better with you and with your analysis. The region's economy is set to shrink considerably. Oil and gas producing countries registered losses of income due to collapse in global demand. Millions of citizens of the Maghreb and Nasser countries work in the Gulf. The remittances they sent home fell down. For states like Lebanon, Egypt, or Jordan, these transfers constitutes roughly 10% of the GDP. Lockdown measures took an especially heavy toll on the tourism and fishery industry. So the broader Mediterranean area is one of the most unequal in terms of wealth distribution. Before the pandemic, the region had the world's highest level of youth unemployment, around 25%. So the pandemic heightened the problem of joblessness and young people's social position. At least we perceive it that way. The situation of women, already mentioned here, who were overrepresented in the job sectors at risk, has even worsened. Many countries of the region are engaged in conflict, as we all know, and they must deal with violent extremism and radicalization. The positive UN-led developments in Libya are a glimmer of hope, but there are other sources of instability. Let me just mention Syria, the Israeli-Palestinian issue, or the Western Sahara. The southern neighborhood is home to big numbers of internally displaced persons, IDPs, and refugees. The coronavirus led to the deterioration of the living conditions of these communities, and we have to face this the reality. Organized crime and conflicts, as well as quality of governance and unemployment, are drivers of migration. It's quite obvious. The EU and its southern neighborhood are clearly interdependent and need to cooperate closely in that sphere. Poland wants to respond to the challenges at hand and be a part of the solution, of course, through bilateral and multilateral actions. We have a good political relations with our southern partners. Our military forces and civilian experts are present in the region. They are part of the EU operation. Around 80 Polish soldiers and 2 aircrafts served in the Mediterranean Sea to help end the conflict in Libya. We also contribute to capacity building of the Libyan Coast Guard and Navy. Up to 250 Polish servicemen are deployed in Lebanon part of the UN peacekeeping mission. We support stabilization efforts through non-military means. Poland has a tradition of providing development and humanitarian assistance to the region. We co-finance specialized international bodies such as the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees and carry out bilateral projects in Jordan, Syria, and elsewhere. And the last but not least, together with the Visegrad 4 countries and Italy, the host of today's event, we have contributed 35 million euro to Libya to support its border management capacities and fight the pandemic. With Germany, we plan to make Morocco by funding a special project. So, of course, Poland will maintain its holistic engagement on the southern Mediterranean shore, but only together with our southern friends. And just to sum up, as I said, we'll be engaged. And let me also send greetings from Minister Rao, who was unfortunately unable to join us today. As you can see, some of us are in self-isolation. Thank you. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you, and I will now pass the floor to Giampiero for the second part of our panel. Thank you, Thomas. We're somewhat late on our schedule, and I'm going to ask very quick questions during the second round, and I would be grateful to the ministers if they responded in just as quick a manner. So we're going to begin with Minister Di Maio, and then Drian, and then the Minister of State, Annen, and then Under Secretary of State for Security, Grlić. So I would like to ask you to answer a question and give us a rapid conclusion once we finish. So for Minister Di Maio, we have seen the challenges of the region, but there are also regional crises. So let's start with Libya. Undoubtedly, the United Nations is doing some very good work there. It's seeking to promote political dialogue, and the dialogue is progressing a little. And what's the role of the other states with regard to Libya in the future, Mr. Minister? With regard to the, Libya, with Arancha and our colleagues, we've discussed several times how our role needs to be more marked, with more initiatives and the work done through the Berlin conference and continued by the Special Envoy Stephanie Williams. Well, that work was of fundamental importance. We cannot think that there will be stability in the Mediterranean region without Libya being stabilized. Stability in Libya is crucial from this standpoint. It has experienced a conflict that for months and months created much suffering for the people. We have given humanitarian aid, and we have worked for a ceasefire. On the 23rd of October, there was an agreement, a ceasefire agreement, and that was a big step forward that led us to hope for the better, the withdrawal of the various forces, re-establishing internal connection, opening up roads between east and west. And there were signals that we tracked with great expectation and with great hope. So there was expectation after the Tunis conversations between in September, and there were positive developments in that forum with respect to the unification, the recreation of the institutions in Libya and the dialogue amongst the various parties. And at the same time, there is still a very fragile situation with the persistent presence of mercenaries in the country, and we shared these concerns with Janine many a time. And there is an uninterrupted work done by many other states that are exercising their influence, and this is of rather worrying for us. So the role of the European Union and of the countries that look out onto the Mediterranean there's an important role for them. We need to protect the process from external interference and make sure that a special envoy is appointed by the EU and by the United Nations, and work against all the sabotage that is exercised against the achievements. There is a roadmap that we can follow and a date for the elections elections in Libya, and we need to protect this process because of the work that is being done by Italy, France, Germany, and Spain. They were protagonists in bringing this about. Thank you. Mr. Minister Drian, let's speak about the Eastern Mediterranean. There we have a geopolitical problem, a struggle for the hegemony, a geo-economic struggle for resources. So how do you see the role of the European Union there in order to emerge from this dilemma?
First of all, dear President, we have to avoid ambiguities on the French position about the management of the Eastern Mediterranean. Why? Because there's these rumors about which this is a sort of French obsession to protest against the intervention of Turkey in these areas. But this is not at all the case. On this region of the Mediterranean, we have two major subjects, and they are juxtaposed. And so, first of all, a policy that was launched by Turkey that would like to establish there without talking with its neighbors, without considering that this space does not belong to it, and also the question of the rule of law and respecting the rule of law. And on the other hand, there's European solidarity vis-à-vis member countries, and that feel they are aggressed, assaulted in their sovereignty. So we want European sovereignty and the rule of law to be respected, both of them, very simply. And when we have actors that are only in favor of the given for granted, this is not the case. And during the European Council last October, a dialogue was suggested, but nobody was in favor of this in Turkey. And the dialogue should be on the merits. So we are more than willing to have on the Eastern Mediterranean this effect of having the rule of law be respected, the sovereignty of EU member countries, and taken for granted. It cannot be a method that we may find everywhere, not only in the Eastern Mediterranean. So there's a need for dialogue, and this is also the case of Libya. So I fully agree with Luigi and what he said a minute ago. So we are in a sort of a positive spiral. There are still things to be done, but nobody thinks that there's a military solution to be found to solve the issues in Libya. And this has been observed everywhere. We cannot be in favor of the taken for granted. We have to be respectful of sovereignty of EU member countries.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, and thank you for your direct answer to my question. And now I would address a question to Minister Annen. The policy of the fait accompli is Erdogan and Turkey. So what can Europe do to go back speaking about dialogue with Turkey?
A comment on that. Look, I believe it would be a mistake from Ankara's point of view to underestimate Europe's willingness to act decisively and in unity. Having said that, we still hope that there is room for diplomatic activity. And I believe my colleagues and friends here understand that Germany has a very unique relationship with Turkey. There are many reasons for that. We have a historic connection, not the least because we have so many citizens in our country with Turkish family background. So I'm also a member of the German parliament. In my district, if there's a tension in Turkey, a political tension, that sometimes directly reflects to what is happening also on the streets in Germany. So we have an interest, if I may use a colloquial expression, to keep Turkey within our camp. There is no geopolitical advantage for us to exclude them from our deliberations and also our alliances, especially NATO. But I also believe that President Erdogan needs to understand that there's a line that we cannot let cross, and the provocations in the Eastern Mediterranean are only one part, and Europe needs to act also in solidarity, especially with our friends in Greece and Cyprus. And we just, had one of many absolutely avoidable and unnecessary conflicts again when the Turkish side accused us of not playing by the rules within the Operation Irini, and for whatever reason stopped the legal boarding of a Turkish vessel. So it really is creating us headaches, but at the same time, we have some experience in dealing with these problems. And I still believe that together with our friends, we can contribute to a political solution.
Thank you, Minister. Now, I would like to address a question to the Secretary of State, Przak. The U.S. administration, not only Trump's administration, paid very little attention compared to the previous ones to what happens in the Mediterranean and in the balance in the Mediterranean. Mr. Minister, according to you, do we need more United States or less United States, provided that Europe succeeds in taking a stance and taking its place in this matter?
Thank you very much for this question. I won't surprise you if I say that we need, of course, more transatlantic cooperation with our American friends. The change of political power in Washington makes me believe that there will be more dialogue and more cooperation over the transatlantic ocean, that will somehow try to strengthen our Euro-Atlantic family, and we see the space for more EU-US effective cooperation in Europe's vicinity, including in the broader Mediterranean. Poland believes that the EU should not overemphasize the idea of so-called strategic autonomy in the context of transatlantic relations. The notion is ambiguous, I would say, but often interpreted as alienating the US, as crossing or cutting the links between the EU and the US. We support strengthening EU defense capabilities, provided they are in line with NATO's plans. All of us, we are NATO members. That's the main task for NATO, to secure us, to provide us with a feeling that we are living in a secure atmosphere all around our continent. And a more geopolitical approach to EU's single market in the context is also would be very much appreciated. But now, at times of expected change in the US, as I said, our primary goal must be to reinvigorate EU-US ties and focus on what brings us together. especially also in the context of the growing presence of Russia in the region. I would say that the Russian military presence and the political engagement in the region have increased substantiely. There are Russian military facilities in Syria, fighters in Libya, and the army develops cooperation with Egypt. Russia's influence and some other regional actors hardly contributes to the stability and security in the Mediterranean region. It is more a part of the problem than the solution. So we would welcome more engagement of the US and more engagement of EU-US cooperation in that regard. Thank you. Over to you, Giampiero.
Thank you, Minister. Madam Minister Gonzalez, conclusive words by you, but in the Middle East there are certain things happen. For instance, the Abraham Accords, and Europe doesn't appear to be present there. What is happening? Do you think that we will succeed in turning the Barcelona process into a more comprehensive security pact amongst Europeans, or do you think we'll be always lagging a bit behind?
Grazie, Giampiero. I would conclude by saying that to me, this Mediterranean region looks like a test of the desire of the European Union to really become strategically more autonomous. Strategic autonomy, at least seen from where I sit, is not about cutting links. It's about building alliances from a position of greater European unity, conviction, and strength. This is what a strategic autonomy means for us. It means that we are more assured of our ability to make our own decisions, which doesn't mean that we will cut the links with allies and friends. In a world that is much more interdependent, and this Mediterranean region is a good example of this, strategic autonomy will only work if we base it on strong alliances. So by way of responding to your question, Giampiero, but also by way of concluding this session, I would say that for Europe, this is a region to display full engagement, full investment, proactivity, which are essential ingredients, again, of this strategic autonomy, but also full ability to build alliances. Alliances with the United States, but not only. Alliances with the African Union, but not only. Alliances also with other regional players that will be crucial in trying to advance security and stability in this region. And alliances also that go beyond governments, alliances with the private sector. There is an incredible potential also to ballast the security and political relations with greater business, economic, and investment interdependence that is well managed. So by way of conclusion, this is Europe's test case for its strategic autonomy. It has to do this with conviction, with energy, with unity, but also with building strong alliances with many other actors that will be crucial in advancing peace and stability in the Middle East, whether it's in the conflict between Israel and Palestine, whether it's in a more peaceful Lebanon, whether it's in a transition in Syria, or whether it's in Libya. All of them are test cases of our desire to invest ourselves more in a comprehensive manner, whether it's economic, political, security, militarily, to better relations with our neighbors and in our neighborhood. I'm looking forward with these very few words to be in the next session of the Med Dialogues, hopefully next year, hopefully in presence, because it would have meant that the investments we are making collectively also to exit the COVID-19 would have worked. Thanks again, grazie Luigi, for having given us the opportunity to discuss this very important region strategically for the European Union.
Well, we've taken a few extra minutes, but there is some time for recovery. And in fact, Italy, as we know, we're going to be hosting the final soccer games next year. And so just like soccer games, we have some recovery time.
Good afternoon, everybody. We had the pleasure to discuss today with 6 Ministers of Foreign Affairs of 6 different European countries. We don't have much time, unfortunately, 45, maybe 1 hour. So let's start. I would like to say something before posing the first question. In April, when Europe and Italy were facing this unknown pandemic, I was struck by an editorial published by Financial Times with no byline, which means that that was the view of the newspaper. And this editorial was calling for immediate action, not only against the pandemic, but against inequality. I just want to quote 2 sentences. To demand collective sacrifice, you must offer a social contract that benefits everyone. And later on, radical reforms will need to be put on the table. Well, I think that the European Union did something radical and unprecedented. I'm thinking about the Next Generation EU, at which core there is the European Green Deal. We'll be seeing energy transition, new mobility infrastructure, environmental protection. And this innovative design cannot be completed and fulfilled if it doesn't comprehend the southern neighbor region, because I think Europe can't be safe and prosperous if other countries on the other side of the Mediterranean are not. So I would like to welcome our first speaker, Minister Di Maio, Luigi Di Maio, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Italy.
I would like to merely say thank you to all the ministers who participate, who are attending this panel. There are many friends. I believe, well, you will remember that in conclusion of the mid-dialogues last year, I had concluded by making an appeal to the broader Mediterranean, a sort of test bench for putting people at the center of our attention, protection of our planet, and creating the foundations for shared prosperity. Today, I'm particularly glad to take part in this panel because I'm amongst, or with the colleagues of the Mediterranean countries who have proven that they share the same ambition and that they have been cooperating on a bilateral basis in the community institutions and within regional fora like Med7. In 2021, Portugal and Slovenia will take the lead in Europe, and it is important to promote a positive agenda and promote stability in the Euro-Mediterranean area. Our countries have a long-standing tradition in seeking inclusive solutions worked out together, delimiting, for instance, maritime sovereignty and the recent agreement between Italy and Greece. The value of these agreements are extremely important. There's an understanding that it is positive for all to share in a sustainable manner the resources of the Mediterranean, whether they are fish or hydrocarbons, and Italy is willing to start the same process with all the countries who will be willing to do so. So this is a concept of the Mediterranean assets that we have in common, for which we are to promote a neighborhood policy, resources that are shared by all countries and the communities within the framework of a southern partnership where we share the material assets, but also the intangible ones, that is digital development, regional initiatives for energy transition. I trust that we can rely on the countries that are represented, because cooperative solutions are the preferred solution also to deal with situations that appear to be exposed to the fait accompli, like competition for the fossil fuel resources of the Mediterranean. So this attitude has been key in protecting one of the essential infrastructure that underlies the European edifice in the wake of the COVID attack. Our countries immediately understood that it was important to ensure the movement of goods and people, albeit with precautions and in emergency conditions. If the national instinct of indiscriminate closure of the trade routes were to have prevailed, and we would have jeopardized cohesion and the resilience ability of the whole of the European Union. The pandemic requires that we make a quantum leap in ensuring that the borders are kept open, and also the digital world is important for our future. We trust that all this will be stimulated and done in a Euro-Mediterranean standpoint and to the benefit of the countries of the southern Mediterranean and of the Balkans, because the Mediterranean Sea is a common sea for us all. Therefore, the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations offers a great opportunity and for regional cooperation. The economic repercussions of health emergencies has shown how important it is for us to take action. Promoting women's empowerment and for youth and vulnerable groups, without forgetting the promotion of the protection of the environment, the digital divide, circular economy, and preservation of resources, beginning with the food resources. Thank you.
Thank you. I just would say thank you very much to all of you that are connected with us, and also the name of the other guests and what they do. We have Mr. Nikos Dendias, Minister of Foreign Affairs for Greece, and Minister Logar, Minister of Foreign Affairs in Slovenia. There is also Mr. Gordan, Radman, Minister of Foreign and European Affairs in Croatia, and Mr. Augusto Santos Silva, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Portugal. Enrique.
I wanted to start with Mr. Di Maio, but Mr. Di Maio already answered the question I wanted to tell him. So I would like just to, in a few minutes, because time is not long, if Mr. Di Maio, you can tell us which was, in your experience, facing this unprecedented threat, which was the most difficult aspect in your job to face this pandemic?
Well, undoubtedly, the most difficult aspect in my role as minister that we had to deal with in this pandemic was the total absence throughout the whole of the European Union, the absence of value chains of health instruments and health materials. I recall that I spent the first month of the pandemic, and we were the first in Italy to experience the pandemic, and there were lung ventilators could have been brought in from other countries, but there was no industry that would produce them in such large quantities as were needed. So I spent a lot of time with the foreign ministers of foreign affairs of the various countries in the world to get 10 lung ventilators in one country that had a factory that would produce them. And, for instance, the face masks and gloves, the disinfectant. The European Union, in the last 10-15 years, the European continent, to be precise, totally left aside or abdicated the possibility of having a value chain on its territory for the production of health materials. So we need to reconstitute this. And this is something that we've been discussing with all the ministers for foreign affairs when we're discussing these issues. And at the same time, investment in in education, in nurses and doctors. I wish to thank some countries that are here present in this panel for the help that they gave us. They sent us what they had, especially in the earlier stages of the pandemic. And I can assure you that amongst the most moving events, there was a country who sent us doctors and nurses. And as Italy, we are truly proud, thanks to this desire of being in a dialogue, of having cooperation-based interactions with the rest of the world. We're proud that our position was repaid, let's say, in terms of help. Now, Italy is producing almost all of the health material it needs. Tens of millions of masks are produced every day. And we must make sure that this is not just an initiative to face this emergency, but that we will create a value chain in Europe which is well structured so as to promote all the industries that produce these products.
Thank you, Mr. Di Maio. I would like now to ask a question to Nikos Dendias, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Greece. Welcome to this panel, and I would like to shift the focus for a moment to resources, left aside for a moment the pandemic. In the recent years, huge gas reserves have been found in the Eastern Mediterranean, and this also was one of the reasons for the escalation of tension with Turkey. At this point, cooperation with neighboring country and the EU on the energy sector is a priority for Greece, for your country. What is Greece's role in the development of energy infrastructure in the region?
Well, thank you for asking this question, and I think it is extremely important to give a very clear answer, understandable to everyone. Greece, as the geography says, and as anybody can clearly understand by just seeing a map, is at the crossroads between Europe, Asia, and Africa. So it's a natural place from which gas and oil pipelines can pass. And this is helpful for Greece because Greece becomes an energy hub, whether at the same time it facilitates development of all the European economies and of all the economies in the region by creating a more accessible market in energy. So this is our policy. On the other hand, I would like clearly to say to you that gas exploitation, especially from the bottom of the sea, is not necessarily one of the top priorities of the Greek government. Although we are a center-right government, a conservative government, at the same time we see ourselves as a green government. And we are very careful on what may happen to the paradise we live in. That's how we characterize the Aegean, the Eastern Mediterranean, and the Ionian Sea. And we would not like this paradise to become a Gulf of Mexico. So if we would like to create an equilibrium between the needs of energy, to have energy sources, but at the same time to protect our environment, our inheritance.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And since you have been concise, I would like to ask you a little bit more. Are you not worried about the tension with Turkey, which is a country, a part of the NATO too?
I'm very much worried about the situation with Turkey. And if you will allow me to say that we have been in some sort of crisis with Turkey during the last 18 months, which is unprecedented. Never again, at least never after 1974, when Greece returned to democracy, had we such a long period of constant crisis with Turkey. And I have to say, although very rarely in life things are black or white, in this case, there's a black and a white, because what we're facing is Turkey's aspiration to become a geopolitical actor in the region, regardless of legality. Turkey does not accept international law and does not accept international laws of the sea. And if I give you a very clear and understandable example, UNCLOS, that is the International Convention for the Laws of the Sea, of which Greece is a member, is a signatory country, but also the European Union in itself, not just the countries is a signatory, gives to every country the right to have 12 miles of territorial waters. And that is the case for Greece as well. Now, Turkey is threatening us with casus belli, which means declaration of war, if we exercise this right of ours. So imagine we are in the 21st century and we have a European member country being threatened by another country with a declaration of war for what? For the exercise of a perfectly legal right, which the existence of which the European Union has co-signed. So, yes, the situation with Turkey is an extremely difficult situation because we're not facing today the Turkey of the past, the Turkey as a country that was aspiring to become a member of the European Union and to share the same European values as all of us. But on the contrary, we're seeing a Turkey that goes back in a very rapid way and has neo-Ottoman dreams and dreams of local hegemony. And this is not acceptable for us.
Thank you, Minister Dendias. I would like now to give the floor to Minister Augusto Santos Silva, Portugal, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Portugal. Welcome. In January, your country, Portugal, will take over the presidency of the Council of the EU. And the moment is quite difficult because we are facing the veto of Poland and Hungary to the budget. Maybe by January this veto will be overcome, we don't know. But I want to ask, what will be the Portuguese priorities of the semester in a year where maybe eventually the vaccine could bring the continent out of this pandemic?
Well, I would say that the program and the responsibility of the Portuguese presidency can be briefed, summarized in a single verb: to implement. It's our responsibility. We have to implement the plan, the strategy of vaccination. We have to implement all the tools that we have to combat and overcome the pandemic. We have to implement the decisions that were taken by the European Council and by the Council and the Parliament, the European Parliament, concerning the recovery plan and the next multi-annual financial framework. And this is a very important task, but it is very important, I think, that for the recovery of our economies and societies, it is very important, as I said, that during the next semester, all the national plans for resilience and recovery can be approved, first negotiated with the European Commission and then approved by the Council. But this recovery of the European economy has to be at the same time a transformation of our economy, a transformation in terms of greening it, in terms of digitalizing it, and in terms of guaranteeing that we have a strong, solid social base, the European social model that allow us to pass successful the double transition, the green and the digital transition. These are the priorities of the Portuguese presidency.
With the Financial Times editorial, I quoted in advance that inequality, you are from a socialist government, inequality is one of the main issues to be taken care in Europe.
Yes, but not from only the point of view of this very important European political family, the Socialists and Democrats. Equality of opportunities, equality before the law, non-discrimination is the founding ground of our Europe, and it's a common feature to socialists, to Christian Democrats, to liberals and to Greens in Europe.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to move from Portugal to Slovenia, because if Portugal has the presidency from January, Slovenia has a presidency, will take over the presidency for July, so the 6 months later. Welcome to Mr. Logar. I see him, here you are, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia. Mr. Logar, as I said, your country will take over the presidencies in July, and Slovenia has a tradition of being green, a green country, and is traditionally Central Europe country, but also has a touch to Mediterranean due to the geography position. So I would like to ask you, given the need of a green transition, as we said before, for the European Union and the wider Mediterranean region, what are the examples that your country can offer for other EU countries and also MENA region?
Well, first of all, I'm very glad to participate at this year's Mediterranean dialogue. Very glad to be in company with esteemed colleagues from Mediterranean countries. And I see this discussion as a, very important insight what will happen with the European Union as well and with the Mediterranean region in the forthcoming months or a year. Slovenia will take presidency in the second half of 2021. Well, we must be fair to say that Germany presidency in the trio presidency has an enormous task ahead. And with Augusto, we all keep finger crossed that Germany will succeed to find a solution regarding the financial framework and next generation financial framework for recovery of the European Union that was hardly hit by the pandemic COVID-19. In our priorities of the Slovenian EU presidency, we see this establishing of the robust, resilient European Union as a cornerstone for long, successful future of the European Union. That's why we especially want to focus, first of all, in one side on the preparing for the future crisis, so enabling better functioning of the European Union in crisis, so establishing kind of crisis management. Apparently, every few years, European Union face a crisis, be it financial crisis, migrant crisis, or as now we see health crisis. And at second, to enable and to fasten recovery with the use of recovery fund and financial framework in order to develop in a sense of green and digital. This is one of the main messages as well from the European Commission. In the speech of Commission President von der Leyen, State of the Union, she stressed several times the need for development of European Union in a sense of green and digital. And this is in a way as well the line we will take during our presidency. So Slovenia is a green country. 70% of our landscape is covered by the forest. I think Slovenia has one of the biggest percentage of the land called within the Natura 2000. And as well, if I'm not mistaken, we're one of the rare or the only country that put in the right for the clear drinking water in our constitution. So this is a constitutional right. Since many years, we are investing in our nature and green, and this is as well our trademark in presenting country as a tourist destination. Our logo is in green. We always take this as one of the most important criteria when projecting or doing business. So I think in Slovenia can be a role model in sense of promoting green, environmental friendly and new technology that are cleaner and better than the technology from yesterday.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Logar. I would like to end with moving a little bit from Slovenia to Croatia. Welcome to Radman, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Croatia. Mr. Radman, welcome. Croatia, your country, joined the EU in 2013. Do you believe that the other states of the Balkan region will eventually end the so-called transition process and find their definitive socio-political stabilization once they complete the integration process into the European Union?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Luigi for having invited me, and of course for this very important conference. I appreciate it very, very much. And I also thank him for having visited me in Croatia a couple days ago, and it was the coordination committee of ministers in Zagreb, and so we discussed a number of topics of common interest, and particularly attention to was given to the Adriatic Sea, what is for us the most important issue. Although the Adriatic Sea is dividing us, but also we share a common interest, and it's also connected at the same time. So we discussed first of all how to enhance, of course, its protection and ensure better governance and of this in the blue economy we all share in the Mediterranean, and of course with Slovenia as well. So we are neighbors, and we are good friends, and we would like just to everything what is actually in European manner. And we also exchange also our views on our common intention to proclaim exclusive economic zones on both sides of the Adriatic. And to have the concerted actions, of course, in proclaiming this zone, and to create a robust basis for an even stronger cooperation and comprehensive protection of the Adriatic by all EU member states, the European Union and its institutions. And I am so very, very glad to, of course, to be in this eminent, distinguished company with my colleagues, minister. So we are already cooperating and communicating, and I comment, of course, the host for including the area. So you mentioned of Western Balkans in our agenda. Yes, you know that. So we are the youngest member state, and after only 7 years, our partnership in the European Union, we were about to chair in the first half of 2020 the Council of the European Union in this very, very interesting, challenging time. And actually, this pandemic crisis forced us to adapt to the new reality and methods of cooperation, and also setting standards for those who have come after us. Coming back to your question about the Balkans, yes, it is our immediate neighborhood, and who more is interested than in Croatia to have a stable and peaceful neighborhood than Croatia is. Actually, it is about to achieve socio-political stabilization. Of course, if there is the question, yes, because that is what enlargement is all about. Enlargement is the most actually important transformation instrument actually the EU has in the Western Balkans. We had really, we worked hardly to fulfill all the criteria, but we are very happy to be in the family of the European Union, to share the European values, and would like to see also our neighbors to do the same. On the other hand, the credible perspective of the EU membership is really a key driver, as I mentioned, of transformation in the region. The main goal of the EU integration process is to prepare to candidate countries to meet all the requirements of EU membership. This, of course, includes fundamental democratic rule of law and economic reforms and alignment with core European values. These reforms are difficult, of course, and require political will and commitment to the process and fulfilling the criteria and requirements. There are many challenges, of course, and a lot of work ahead of them. I know very much how was it, and so I participated as several working groups during our negotiation with the European Union in the second half of 2000. However, the EU has shown that it's really ready to help them along the way, and the EU leaders confirmed at the Zagreb summit in May, and we are very proud to have this and to organize this conference, although in virtual way. But however, it really was we are very proud with the Zagreb Declaration. Sorry?
No, thank you, Mr. Radman. The problem is that we are running out of time, and we have to. I have also other questions about migration. That's why I am forced to interrupt you to give the floor to my colleague Maurizio Caprara for the other part of the panel. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Enrica. Let's run. And my question is for Minister Di Maio. We have an increase of migrant and refugees arrivals in Italy this year. Starting from the 1st of January, there have been to the 3rd of December, there have been around 32,000 of arrival, thousands of arrival, and the year before we had almost 11,000, but they were more in 2018. I don't think this is the worst problem in our country because we have always to remember that at the beginning of this year, we had 16,000 residents less in our country due to the low rate birth that makes possible in Italy to have just 67 new children for any 100 people that die. So I would ask you, what are you doing to increase the bilateral agreement about the repatriations of the not regular migrants, and what should be done to increase the stability in the northern part of Africa?
Thank you for this question. I think that the situation is before our very eyes. The countries who are present at this panel know very well that they are in the frontier land. They are the frontier of the European Union with regard to migrations. In fact, we observe these phenomena as being the result of terrorist threats in some areas in Africa, climate change, and at the same time also what was mentioned earlier, instability, economic instability. And I'm thinking of Tunisia here. From there, 5,000 people came from Tunisia during the summer. So the issue has been dealt with at various levels. We are the second contributor at the European level for the Africa Fund for cooperation development initiatives in Africa to try and set right economic problems. And we have bilateral agreements on the returns, repatriation. The Tunisians who come here are returned to their country, but the time required for these returns are much longer than the time of arrivals. And so we are dealing with all this on our own. And we're working on a new European pact on migration and asylum, and we share the concerns with many countries present in this panel. That is, the rumors that arrive with regard to the European Pact on Migration and Asylum, because the draft that has been drawn up is not sufficient. It just takes a snapshot of the problem as a problem of the riverine countries of the Mediterranean and not of the European Union. So the redistribution issues and European solidarity issues are not taken into account. It is of fundamental importance to deal both with the returns, but also the issue of arrivals and the redistribution of migrants. We have believed, and we believe in the European Commission, in the mandate it has received for ambitious results with the Recovery Fund and migration. So we are looking towards the same courage and same commitment that we have seen in the creation of a common European debt, the Maxi Generation EU. We are expecting solidarity also with regard to migrations through a cooperation tools that will involve all the member states, both for returns and for the redistribution of the migrants.
Thank you very much, Minister. We will talk again about the next generation here with other ministers. I have a question for Mr. Nikos Dendias, Minister of Foreign Affairs for Greece. And recently, a British newspaper, The Guardian, wrote, since 2015, Greece has effectively been used by the rest of the EU as a buffer zone against unwanted migrations. And it's clear that you have had a lot of people and difficult conditions for thousands of refugees and migrants in camps that were too much crowded and supposed to host less people. But yesterday, the European Commission signed a memorandum with your country outlining a detailed plan in which there will be a new up-to-standard reception center in the island of Lesbos and in next year. And there was also the agreement for 121 million of euros granted to Greece for other camps in 3 other places. Do you need more than this, or is it a step in the right direction? What will be the next of the road?
Well, first of all, I have to admit that there's increased awareness in Europe on the problem of migration and of the migratory flows in Greece. And I have to say that European solidarity has been evident in Greece, especially in the Frontex operating in the borders of Greece, but also in the ongoing discussion, first of all for financial aid, but most importantly for creating a new, more efficient asylum process and also an absolutely necessary efficient returns program. Because on the basis of the argument, there's one thing that we all have to understand. Regardless how ready is the mechanism, regardless how efficient the procedure, it has a time, it has a number limit. We cannot host everybody. And that means that we have to decide who are entitled to protection according to international law and who are those as just economic migrants and have to be returned to the countries of origin. So I welcome the measures taken by the European Union. I welcome the increased awareness, but a lot has to be done. Having said that, there's also something I would like to remind, that back in March of 2019, starting from February 2019, we have faced in the part of Turkey a unique blackmail against Greece and against the European Union. Turkey orchestrated migratory flows to come into Europe migratory flows of tens of thousands of people, tens of thousands of poor migrants residing up to that time in Spain. We were able at the time, with European help, to protect our borders. But I think the European Union should be very much aware that if this phenomenon is repeated, apart from being a flagrant violation of human rights and international conventions, is a very dangerous blackmail effort against the Union.
Thank you very much. Mr. Silva, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Portugal, you said we need strong European social models. How do you evaluate the veto that was announced last month by the Polish and Hungarian governments on Next Generation EU plan that should be useful for improve the condition, also the social conditions of our countries after the pandemic of COVID-19?
Well, I have to be very clear. It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable that two member states can block a decision that is very, very important, decisive for all the European Union, for the recovery of the European economy, and on such an argument. Because, of course, the rule of law is one of the basic values and principles of the European Union, and all of us that belong and chose to belong to the European Union chose to belong to an entity, a political union, in which the respect for human rights, for the independence of the justice, for the freedom of press, for the rights of the opposition, for citizenship, all the respect for all these values is binding.
Thank you very much. Mr. Anže Logar, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia, your Prime Minister, Janez Janša, on November 17 wrote a letter in which supported the position of Hungary and Poland on this issue. Don't you think that the rule of law is one of the founding values of the European Union? How can we say that we have not to take them in consideration when we decide to spend a lot of money for the conditions in which our societies live?
Well, but Mr. Arancha didn't wrote in the letter what you said. One should very carefully read the letter. What
rule of law is not exactly has to be considered as European Union is considering it.
No. He said that we are fully supporting the rule of law as a basement and a basic value of the European Union. But facing with two countries, they are saying that they will call the veto. Let's try to find a solution that can accommodate 27 member states in order to have next generation, so recovery fund and financial framework available as of 1st of January 2022. So this was an active role as a member of TRIO in order that to evade or to somehow overtake the...
You mean he was a mediator, a facilitator? You are meaning that he was a mediator?
Yes, trying to be a mediator. And
it was not interpreted so.
Sorry?
It was not generally interpreted so.
Well, the problem with interpretations is that they very frequently does not fit to what is exactly written in the letter. So I always, whenever there is an interpretation, trying to check the original document. And if you will thoroughly read the letter, you will see that the intention of Prime Minister was, if there is a foreseen veto, let's sit once again and talk and try to find a solution. And as you saw, after the summit, European summit, the president of Germany stated that we are trying to find a compromise. And as well, the president of European Council said that we will try to find a solution that fits to all behind the table.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting interpretation of that letter. I hope that presidents of European Council and other European institutions will keep it in consideration in this way. Mr. Radman, Minister of Foreign Affairs and European Affairs of Croatia, can you elaborate on that? Minister?
Sorry?
Yes, no, I was asking if you have to something, if you have, no, we have to close fastly, so I just would like to know if you have something to add about this debate between Poland, Hungary, and the rest of European Union.
So we are 27 members of the European Union. Sometimes we have also to, it's normal that so sometimes we have further among the European family different approach, but of course we are all our how to say course is to come to have a unanimous decision on some very important issues that are connected us. Actually, we support everyone concrete and constructive proposal and idea, but I'm sure that so we will come finally to a common ground, and so when it comes to the multi-annual financial framework and the recovery plan. Of course, it's up to the country just to have their own policy, but of course we should to harmonize our national policy with the European one, because it's so dedicated to be members of the European Union. But of course we should to respect every country to have their own plans and proposals. But I'm sure that for that purpose, so we will have also European Council in next few days, next week, I think so. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ministers, and thank you for people who worked for the translations, and to all of you that were connected with us. All of you ministers represent countries that are part of the European Union's external borders, so it has been important what you have told, and managing migration is an European challenge, and today we're putting European solidarity into practice. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, and I hope it will be true. All the best for every one of you.
Thank you.